in their life. Oh, whoopsie. We weren't recording the first part. No
Oh
worries.
yeah, I'm sorry about that, Jane. I realized I had it turned off. So
It's okay. It's
yeah,
all good. Yeah, I think it's all good.
okay.
And so what we know that what another way that we can think about like how we can help and support people is to think about like there are three buckets of things that we all need, right? We all it's one of them is called discovery and navigation, and that's where we just need to learn things, right? That's where we're going to college or we're learning what happened here. I accidentally went backwards or went too far. Learning information that we need to navigate life, right? And then the next one is networking and connecting, which is about, building connections to family, friends, peers, and others. And it really helps us build self-confidence and strong mental health, right? And then goods and services, things you can buy, things you can access in your daily life. So when you're thinking about the people you see and that you work with, you know, sometimes you might be talking to them about something that they need, and maybe what they need is just to learn something. Or maybe what they need is to make some quality connections, or maybe they do need something like a staff person who can come into their home and help them with cooking or cleaning, or a device that they might need, right? Um, Sometimes in the past, we would always assume that what people needed were goods and services. And we didn't think about the fact that what really might be needed would be something in either the orange or the blue bucket, right? And so a really good example is back in the day when we were first getting people out of institutions into these group homes, there would be, they would go on community outings with staff, but there was not a lot of effort made to help them build relationships or friendships with people that were at those places where they went, right? So like my buddy John would go to the car races with the staff every week, and he never once met another person that went to the car races because the staff and John interacted, but they never interacted with anyone else. And the assumption was that, well, John needs staff, but what John really needed was somebody who liked races as much as him, that he could, right, that he could connect to. Well, we never thought about filling up that orange bucket. We only thought about filling up that green bucket. So the other thing that, and this is one of the tools that one of the teams, one of the groups is going to practice with, is this idea that supports can also look very different, right? And so when we think about helping someone to achieve a goal in their life or to live the life they desire, right? We build that from a variety of sources, right? We look at their personal strengths and assets and their talents. We look at the relationships they have. We look at what technology can we bring to bear. What are some of the things that are just in the community that we could access, right, to help them have that life they want to live? And then what are the eligibility specific services that they can access? And again, I think all too often we focus so much on this green area of eligibility specific services, and we ignore the other areas, and we're missing out. We're missing out on really some rich and high quality ways that the person can engage in their community and live a good life. Oh, okay. I forgot this is that one weird thing. So what we talked about is you've got the person in the context of their family, looking at all of the domains of life, right? Thinking about how people can be connected and network, thinking about goods and services, things that they can learn. And then when you start to look at the supports, really focusing on all of the kinds of supports that are available, their own personal strengths, their relationships, um, eligibility specific services, community-based services, and then technology. So, you can really help someone build a good life when you look at when you look at every area here. Okay. So we are tonight going to practice using some person-centered tools, and it's a little bit, by the way, if you want to look at these tools or dig into these tools, they're just at lifecoursetools.com. They come from another lend. They come from the lend that is in the University of Kansas City in Missouri, not a lend, a Developmental Disability Institute. They were created at the DDI at the University of Missouri in Kansas. So I thought that was kind of cool. And they're a really great tool. You're going to talk about Tim tonight. This is Tim. That's my son. He has given permission. He has gallantly given permission for people to talk about him without him in the room, though typically he would want to be in the room. But he knows that you're learning and he doesn't want to have to come to this class to meet with all of you. So he said that you can pretend he's there and use his story as him. Um, and so you're going to talk about him tonight. Um, yeah. And I think you've got your instructions. Just if you want more information about um, the framework that we were talking about or about helping people with transition, I just put some resources in this slideshow. I'm trying to remember, Roosevelt, do we give them the slideshow afterward?
Mike,
Yes.
Did
okay,
Mike do
cool.
that? Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay. Is Mike
we
on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Hi. Hey, everybody. Sorry I'm late.
Yeah.
No, the slides are always made available on Canvas. So yeah, so if you updated them recently or since last year, send them to me. Otherwise, I have them.
Okay. I did send them to
Oh,
Roosevelt.
I have them then.
Oh, you
That's
have
Okay.
them?
right.
Okay.
Good.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank
Good.
you.
All
Yep. I'll
right.
make sure they're up there.
So yeah, so on your slides, there will be some more resources if you want to learn more about either this framework or if you just want to learn more about how our system in Michigan works to try to support young adults with or older adults with developmental disabilities. I did have you look at the Got Transition website, and so I haven't read through all of your comments about that website, but I will get to that later tonight after class is over and give any feedback to you. Okay, so I'm going to unshare. Okay, so like I said, I gave you the very fast, I talked super fast, um, down and dirty description of this framework, right, for supporting people and helping people think about what they would like their life to look like, what a good life looks like, and then how to kind of try to figure out what supports might be available. One of the things that I wanted to just say before we break into groups is that I do a lot of facilitating of this person-centered planning process, which in Michigan is kind of how people determine what behavioral health services and supports they're going to get. And sometimes I'll have like the parents of someone who's about to turn 18 call me up, and this is what they say to me. I need you to help me get some community living supports, which is staff for my son or my daughter. I'm like, okay, well, um, what 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 does your son or your daughter like to do? What do they want to do? Like, what's the purpose? What are we going to do with these staff once we have them? And then the 9 times out of 10, the parent will be like, I don't know. I just heard that I need to call up CMH and get support, or I just need help. I can't, I'm still working. My kid's going to be home all day. I need them to do something, right? They haven't even thought about the fact that, okay, my kid has a need, and I think their need's going to be met by the community living supports or the staff, right? Like it's hard to wrap your head around the idea that first, let's talk about what the real need is, right? Like, what does the person want to do with their life? And then we can try to talk about what supports and services they need. And I remember this one mom one time said to me, I know that you have to do it that way, but this is just annoying to me. I just want my 8 hours a week of staffing for my son. By about the third year that we were engaging in planning, she recognized and valued the process and was really happy to know that people were spending time helping her son think about what he wanted to do with his life, right? But it took a minute because she was just a mom that was desperate for some help, right? And so, oh, and Aisha says, what are you saying? Hang on here. It's a conversation that some parents don't have with their kids. No, you're right. It's definitely a conversation that sometimes parents haven't had for their kids. And I think that some of you in the comments that you wrote after watching some of the videos talked about that fact, right? That sometimes we don't start giving kids with disabilities the same responsibilities as non-disabled peers, or we don't start giving them the same opportunities to choose things, right? As non-disabled peers. And so it's the same thing when you're transitioning to adulthood. A lot of times you're just trying to get through the day to day, and you haven't spent that time talking with your kids about those topics of like, what do you want to do after high school's over, right? So anyway, that's my little statement about why I think using frameworks and tools like what we're going to practice tonight is important, because we have to think about how we have that conversation with individuals and their families in a way that helps them see the bigger picture of like, wait, this is supposed to help me have a life that I want to live. So what does that look like? And then we figure out how to get the support or what support needs to happen, right? So you've got Tim's story. I know that got sent to you in advance. You all know what group you're in, and you all know which tool you're going to use. And so what we're going to do in a minute is we're going to break into groups, and you're going to you can talk through your tool a little bit, whatever, and go through Tim's story. He's the parts of his story he shared. He's left a few things open for your interpretation. Um, he has given you license. Um, but to really use the tool that you've been assigned to sort of fill in those, answer those questions and be thinking about, given what Tim says, what might be some really cool ideas of, what his trajectory could look like, what his supports could look like, what options he might have, right? So that's what you're going to do. And then when you're done working on that, we'll come back and kind of talk through what you all came up with. I'll tell you the real story of where Tim is today because he's very proud of where he is today, and he likes me to make sure everybody knows. And so we'll do that, and then we'll just have any questions or anything that you might have.
All
So
right.
Jan, I'm sorry, can I
Okay.
add? Can I add also? So in past years, you all, you can share your screen in your rooms, and as you talk through the tool, add text, keep notes for each aspect of the tool, or if you can edit within it, go for it. It's nice to keep track of what you're talking about with the tool itself, if possible. But you can also just have someone keep track of notes on like a Word doc or something, so then you can show them when we come back and share out. Okay. Just something we always forget to
I
mention
know.
because, and every year the groups do it. Now, how long do you want to do it, Jan?
Um, I think, do we usually give them like 30?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would say 30 minutes. Yep,
30
6:30,
minutes.
and
Yeah,
then
and then if
five
we can get,
minutes, five
yep,
minutes to share out from each group.
yep,
Cool.
All right.
okay.
All
Sorry,
right.
Roosevelt, go for it.
No. Okay. Cool.
Roosevelt's been fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome back, everybody. Um, I think you said we have four groups, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We have four groups, and we want to take about, I don't know, 5 minutes or so for each group, to sort of talk through which tool you used and kind of what you came up with based on Tim's story. Um, and so why don't we'll just start with group one. Who wants to report out from group one? Is it so they can share their screen in case they took notes?
Yeah. So everyone should have the ability, but if you don't, just let me know.
Okay, so group one, who is going to report out for your group? Or
I
you can all
can.
report out.
I can, and then if you guys want to like fill in the gaps that I'll probably have, I can share my screen
Okay,
and we'll see.
okay, we will see.
Is it working?
Oh, yes,
Yep.
it is. Very
Yep.
good. And you had the
Oh,
trajectory. Excellent.
yes. Oh gosh. Okay. So, um, yeah, for past life experiences, we were listing any life experiences or events that have like supported Tim's vision for his life in the future. And so we talked a lot about like the fast track adoption and like the stability that provided. And it seems like he was connected with a lot of support people at that time, considering he's considering, his case manager and things like that, like as like a friendship level. So there's some support and trust there. He seems to really know his interests and his strengths, including like photography and um, cars, like knowing a lot about cars, and I don't know anything about cars. So that's um, pretty good strength. And then like what he wants out of the future, like knowing that is, I think, a really great step towards meeting those goals. Like just knowing what you want out of life. And then for past life experiences that could push your trajectory towards things that you don't want. We said like the past trauma and like unstable housing, like early in life, um, could definitely potentially kind of look at things that he doesn't want out of life. And then traditional academic environments seems like that was also a little traumatic for him, just being behind in that environment, and doesn't seem like peers are a comfortable group for him to be around. So when we look at moving forward, current things that future experiences or goals that will continue to support his good life vision. So working with cars or photography as potential like hobbies or career development, like sources of income, um, or another source of income, access to support for financial decisions and planning if he needs them. I think we all need them. And then we also mentioned like relationship building with peers or romantic partners. So, like having someone to bounce ideas off of how to build those relationships, or seeking different environments to build those relationships. So that way, our friendships aren't only coming from like these formal professional relationships, like case managers, social work, teachers, things like that. So then going straight down, like listing things to avoid that could keep him from achieving his life vision. Previously, there had been a history of maybe like property damage, which seemed to maybe like um, coping skills in like a destructive manner. So kind of making sure that we have other sorts of coping skills that could not be destructive as we get older. Keeping to the kind of avoidance of relationships with peers would definitely get in the way of his vision of like having a family one day, or like not being engaged in his goal planning or not budgeting. Mentioned like he liked to, what is it called? When they like add on stuff to cars.
Oh, like he likes to
Detailing?
customize and he likes
Customizing,
to,
yeah. So like cars can be an expensive hobby, so just making sure there's like a budget for that could be, a good thing. So then his vision for what he wants, he mentioned like building a family someday, having a source of income and a stable income, having a home. I didn't put, or like, his independent living seems like definitely a vision for what he wants. And then also seems like his hobbies and interests are really important to him. So making sure he has time for that. And then we put things that, what I don't want, instability of like a home or finances, being unable to enjoy his interests, feeling uncomfortable around peers. Seems like that's maybe why we're avoiding those environments. Having no car, not being able to make his own decisions. So those were the.
awesome. Can you imagine having that conversation with someone like in a conversational way to get at those pieces of information?
Sure. I think part of it is just like he already kind of detailed in his document that we saw, like what he wants out of life. But I think that's a good place to start. Like, what do you see yourself? What's a good life look like to you? And then working backwards might be helpful
Mhm.
too.
Yep, yep.
Um,
And in fact, that's typically how people use that tool is kind of work backwards. So,
I went left to right. Sorry.
no, n- no, that was perfect what you did. Um, but sometimes when you're having that natural conversation, starting on the what would you like a good life to look like sides is feels more natural, right? But it's a good framework. Thank you. Thank you for that. Good job, group. Group two. Let's see let's see what you did.
Um, I'm gonna share my screen. Let me know if you all can see it.
Okay.
We had the integrated support star,
Okay.
which it's broken up into sections under personal strengths and assets, relationships, eligibility specific, community based, and technology. So
Okay.
we just kind of did bullet points. So for personal strengths and assets, good working relationships with support professionals. He is eager and wanting to take the next steps towards independence. There is a support system with an adoptive family. He has hobbies and interests in photography and cars, And someone else said resilient and wanting to kind of pursue independent adult life despite early trauma and multiple placements. Some of the relationships are the adoptive parent, former caseworkers, probation officers, support professionals, adult allies he's found comfort in. For eligibility specific Medicaid and Medicaid waiver, because special education services in Michigan go until 26, there might be some transition age services available, social skills training and behavioral support because he is 21, GED and adult education services. I don't know if he graduated high school, but it said he didn't spend a lot of time in school, vocational rehab services, and then for foster youth specific, the youth in transition funding, and Michigan Education and Training voucher through MDHHS, which provides some additional funding in tools for either college or vocational school or towards, getting a car, moving out, independence. Community-based community mental health services. Mentor Michigan is another one through Leo, where they match youth with mentors in an area they're interested in. The Michigan Youth Opportunity Initiative, which is kind of like a leadership thing for former foster youth. The ARC, peer mentors through community mental health services, independent living skills and support group, community college or vocational tech school. The MCTI on the west side of the state is what came to mind because they do have an automotive program, and it's more of like a traditional college campus with skills training. Autism Alliance of Michigan, Disability Network, or just a local auto shop where to kind of maybe go and shadow or learn more. Adult education programs, community recreation, supported living, and then technology, maybe telehealth for therapy for ongoing mental health needs, virtual support groups, online GED prep, and of course, there's a ton of like Facebook and other social media groups based on interest. So that might be a way to kind of create bonds with peers and more of a low stakes online way. I don't know if anyone else from my group had anything they wanted to add.
I think you guys did a really great job. The one thing that I would say about community-based supports is so I would say community mental health is more of an eligibility-based support because you have to have a behavioral health need and you have to have Medicaid, right? So you have to be eligible for that service. A community-based support might be the library or like auto shops. So you've got a little mixture of community-based and eligibility-based in that section. So I would challenge you to think bigger about the community, right? So if we're thinking about Tim loving cars, right? There's auto shops, there's car dealers, there's car clubs, right? Those would be those community-based supports that you might do. But yeah, you did some great work there and you came up with some things. I love that you didn't ignore that he had been a foster child and you came up with some ideas about like what are some of the resources he could tap into from that. Um, some eligibility specific things that he could tap into. I love that. I'll give you more hints. I gave you a couple of hints, but I'll give you more hints after the next two groups go. I'll tell you the story of where he is and what he did. Group three, you want to go next?
All right. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Okay, let's see. We'll do it.
Here's hoping.
I have faith in you.
Yes. Do you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. All right. So I'm just going to kind of give you the short version and go quickly because I know we only have 5 minutes. So we used the Life Domain Vision tool. And so for daily life and employment, we talked about Tim maybe wanting to consider taking automotive classes at a local community college, maybe in the trades department. He may want to consider photography classes, maybe like seeing some group tours or being part of the group tours within abandoned buildings, maybe taking history classes so that, you can see the where all of these buildings stemmed from, joining some historical society tours, community living. We thought maybe he might enjoy staying at home for some time to get used to living with people and having a support system. He might meet people in his community and begin thinking about moving in with others in the community, but he's still staying close to home. It says that Tim likes music, so maybe he'd be interested in joining a group choir. adaptive recreation offerings in his city in the local Parks and Rec department. We talked about going to car shows and maybe joining a car club. As far as healthy living, introducing Tim to his doctor, creating a list with Tim for med management if there's any medications, and helping Tim to schedule his own appointments and advocating for himself. Um, Also, we thought about, because at one point it said that Tim enjoys hanging out with the older population. So I don't know. I said within my community, pickleball is huge in that population. So maybe joining a pickleball club that would bring some exercise. We talked about a symptom. I don't know if that a symptom tracker. So if he isn't feeling well or has different symptoms, so that he could maybe keep track of those things so he can present them to his doctor and at an appointment, teaching Tim how to cook and grocery shop and doing daily healthy tasks. Does Tim need guardianship or power of attorney from his adoptive parents? Does he have a current caseworker? What does his safety plan look like? Is he educated on personal boundaries when dating and peer relationships? For advocacy and engagement, is Tim volunteering anywhere? Does he have a special interest more than cars? Or, maybe he can volunteer at a car show or within a group. Would someone in the community be willing to talk with him about cars and or photography? Does he have a driver's license? Has he taken a driver's training course? Supports for family. Does Tim get enough support from his family? Is he open to having them be his guardians? Does Tim have the ability to have friends in the home? Are there family pets that Tim shares responsibility of? The family can help in developing a daily routine as far as social engagement and sharing customs and traditions. For supports and services, does he have a caseworker? Does he have a therapist? Maybe taking him and getting him services at a place like Easter Seals Mork or DWIN might be a good referral for Tim and his family. CLS and MRS, ABA therapy, we actually Googled it. With private pay insurance, ABA therapy can happen for quite some time. Also, what about financial service support from the caseworker?
Nice. You asked some really excellent questions. Um, and brought up some things that maybe Tim and his family hadn't thought about in those early days. So that's really great. Okay, group 4.
All right, I'll share my screen. Let me see if I can find the right one. Oh, that's not the right. Can you
Oh,
guys see?
caring. Yep, you got the caring about caring for. Yep.
Great. So our group did charting the life course. Ours will be probably a little bit more brief than that last one. That was great, Lorraine. So we kind of clustered these into like kind of the caring about and put those all together and the caring for.
Mhm.
And so currently, right now for the caring about, based on what we've kind of heard from the story, it seems to be his adopted family and that he gets along well with caseworkers and older adults. Seems like he hasn't been enrolled in the traditional school system for some time. So kind of looking ahead at next steps is if he is looking for employment, potentially like having coworkers be a group of caring about with shared interests. Potentially, if it's within his goals to re-enroll in the school system, I think he's 24 now or 22. So could still enroll in the school system for another few years if that's of interest to him and he could get benefit from that. Um, Looking ahead at clubs, we were talking about potentially joining a photography club or like a car show. I know there's a few car shows kind of around Michigan, like helping with like the planning committee or potentially working at like an auto shop or shadowing in an auto shop or an auto parts store. Um, and so some like next steps are connecting with like a case manager who can help set some of those things up if any of those are of interest to him. Um, and then in the caring for, we kind of made that one category as well. And in terms of the caring for, it's a lot of self caring for and self determination, and then his adopted family is also very helpful in the caring for aspect. And so looking ahead, some things that we were thinking about were, making sure that he is well versed kind of in functional living skills, getting connected with OT to kind of help with uh, activities of daily living, um, making sure that he is comfortable financial, like budgeting for a set amount of time, or if he needs support system to kind of help create a budget with like meal prepping, meal planning, groceries, just kind of helping. Kind of assessing his current needs and getting him connected with like educational resources for learning those things. If he, drives currently, or if he is planning to get a driver's license, like getting connected with driver's training. Um, and then in terms of future planning for caring for, like talking about supported decision making versus is a guardianship needed. If he is going more towards the supported decision making route, like building that circle of support, who's going to be a part of that, making sure that advanced directives are filled out, and um, you can kind of make the advanced directives a little bit more. Uh, I know in the training thing today, it was like in the advanced directive, you could say if I were to lose decision making capacity, that I want this person to do it, but also, in my current state, I'd like these people to kind of help me make the decision. So getting all that kind of paperwork lined up. So I don't know if anybody else from my group had anything else to add there.
I like that everybody recognized that Tim in the beginning really was relying a lot on paid supports and not so much non-paid supports and not so much peers, right? Like he just didn't have a friend group. And so I love the fact that every one of you in some way, shape, or form focused on that notion that he needed to have some quality connections that wasn't just his mother and a bunch of paid supports, right? So I really appreciate that. I think you all did a really good job. I'm going to tell you that we use these tools with Tim. Tim actually um, lived with me until he didn't end up moving into his own place until he was 21 years old. So he did stay home a little bit longer. I think somebody mentioned that as a possibility in your when you were having your discussion. But when he did move out, he did move into an apartment. The first apartment he moved into was at the senior high rise because a small percentage of it can be people with disabilities. And so he moved in there. What he liked about that was that it was really cheap, and so he could afford it easily and still had money for, doing things to his car and whatever. But he didn't like the fact that it was a very large building with a big, very robust social network in the lobby. So every time he'd go in and out of to get to his apartment from the building, he'd have to go walk through this gauntlet of people that all wanted to talk to him and interact with him. And it like made him very uncomfortable. And so he didn't end up really enjoying living there very much because he's like, too many people. So he now lives in a really great apartment that's like about, I don't know, 5 blocks from my house that is also income based. It's designed for people who are sort of not not below the poverty level, but like that moderate income, that folks that are like sort of in the Alice population, working minimum wage jobs, that's what it's kind of aimed for. But it's a really great apartment complex. They're brand new apartments. He loves it there. He has a dog. That he has had for a long time. He actually got her when he still lived at home. So unfortunately, the dog is getting up in age. He also didn't get a car. He got a driver's license. As I said, he had all these sensory issues, right? That um, people in the system didn't even know about till he actually came to my house. The first day I met him, I'm like, hey, that kid has autism. In my head, I'm thinking, that boy has autism. Why didn't they tell me he has autism? And then I found out that they didn't tell me he has autism because they didn't really realize he had autism. And so we had to go through all of that, right? And so, but once we figured that out, and we figured out also that kids in foster care don't always gain skills, self-care skills and home care skills in the same way that kids that live in a more traditional family do, because a lot of times there are restrictions about going in the kitchen and being allowed to cook and, all the things that you make your teenager learn how to do when they live at home, right? And so we did have to do a lot of work on building those skills. I think Noah, you had in your notes something about like, building those self-care skills or those activities of daily living kinds of skills. And so we did a lot of work around that. And one of the things that was his dream was to drive a car. And so we found him an occupational therapist who also teaches driving, right? And so we enrolled him in that course, and it turns out he's an excellent driver. His superpower as a young man with autism is he notices minute details. And so he is like one of the best drivers that I know because of that. And so he got his license and he got a car and he takes beautiful care of the car. He tried doing photography. His photography is gorgeous. It is so beautiful. Again, superpower. He has this eye, and he takes these beautiful pictures. He tried doing that for like money, like people would pay him to take pictures, and he hated it, despised it. It took all the fun out of it. Making it a job took all the fun out of it. So he's not doing that. What he found that he loves doing is he's a door dasher. He loves being able to drive his car, not have to interact much with people, right? Because most people still are having you just put the food on the porch. Um, and so he makes like really good money. He's a five-star, door dasher because he's like prompt and on time at all times. Um, and he loves that job. He absolutely loves what he does for money. It leaves him lots of time to pursue his hobbies. And he is working with, we were able to, through self-directed services through the behavioral health system, we were able to help him get somebody who, two people actually, who actually work with him to focus on a couple of his personal goals, one of which is to try to make some friends, try to find places where people his age hang out and make some friends. And so he's working with one young man on that goal, and they're helping him get comfortable in spaces and helping him, you know, engage in some social convention and making friends. And then the other person is helping him work on a personal health goal. If you saw that picture of Tim earlier in the slideshow, he's a little bit, you know, has some weight on him, had some weight, and he had always had some issues with food related to his first 10 years when he didn't always get to eat every day. And so he had gained a lot of weight when he came to my house, because there's food in my house at all times and you can eat it whenever you want. And, because he wasn't used to that, he maybe did that. And so he wanted to lose weight and get healthier. And so he has a support broker who helped him get connected to a personal trainer. So he has a personal trainer that he pays for out of his earnings, by the way. And the support broker helps him like connect to things. So like he wanted to find a dietitian to help him learn to eat better. And so she helped him find a dietitian. And so he sees the dietitian now, and they work on menus together. And so he has all of these sort of personal health goals, and his broker helps him connect to the people who can help him achieve those personal health goals. He's made some friends. He's got some friends his own age. He loves to go hiking in the woods. That's one of his main sources of exercise, besides when he's working in the gym with his trainer. And so he'll go out and go on these super long hikes and take all these beautiful pictures. Um, he is a great uncle to his niece and nephew, and a great parent to his dog, Marshall. And if you asked him today, he would tell you that he feels so grateful that he has the life that he has and that he has the support that he has. Um, and so we really used the trajectory to help Tim think about what a good life looks like, right? And then we began to think about how can we connect services and supports and learning new skills. Like if you go back to those three buckets, right? Tim needed to learn some things. He needed to make some connections, and then we needed to do some things with goods and services. And I know we only have 3 minutes, but I want to tell you how we use tech. So when he first got that car, I was super scared and nervous because, here's this young man who, I don't know if he would get lost. I don't know if he's a good driver. He's got, all of these things going on. He's got all this trauma. What if he gets in an accident and then he panics and he doesn't know what to do? I like to worry about all the things that, that you could possibly think of to worry about. So we both have iPhones and we use Verizon, and Verizon has Smart Family, and you can sign up for it. And when he's driving in the car, I can in real time know if he's exceeding the speed limit wherever he is. I can know if he's braking too hard. I can know if he's taking too sharp of turns. And so for the first, I don't use it anymore with him, but for the first year of his driving, we had that. And so then one time when he hit a deer, all he could do was call me and tell me he hit the deer. He couldn't tell me where he was. He was so panic stricken, right? It was okay because I could just look on my beautiful technology and know exactly where he was so I could drive out to assist him with the situation with the deer. So we use technology in that way. Some of his health goals, he has an Apple Watch like his mother, and he uses that Apple Watch to keep track of things for his health goals. We use all sorts of apps. He has a budgeting app. He has, of course, his DoorDash app. He has his banking app. So we try to use technology as much as we can because he loves technology. But there are ways that we've used it also to keep him safe, right? Not just for his enjoyment, but also to help him stay safe. So I wanted to just share all of that about how Tim's life ended up. I love the things you all had to say. He always likes it when I share the ideas and the things that you all came up with because, gives him ideas for the future. And in fact, based on things other groups have said, we've tweaked some things in his planning. So thank you all for that. And Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you with 1 minute. I'm sorry.
What are you sorry about? I don't need more than 10 seconds to wrap
Okay.
up. Thank you so much, Jan, and thank you, Roosevelt, for quarterbacking tonight and making sure everything works. I've always liked this one because we're at the point in the year now where we've talked a lot about providing services for children and adolescents with neurodevelopmental disabilities, but now we're looking at how do you keep going, right? That transition to adult services, that transition to independence, and so on and so on, and what that looks like. And you all will approach that in different ways based on the work you do, right? Whether you're working in a clinical setting, a hospital setting, community setting, or just at home. Um, and Jan, you gave us a perfect segue. So the next module, module 15, we only have two left, two more Zoom sessions, and that's it. Um, is the next one is on emerging technologies. So you can start thinking about as you look at that module, which is very light. There's one activity in there for you. Um, and then the Zoom session, we're literally going to talk about emerging technologies, and then there's going to be a lot about AI. Of course, that is the hot thing. That is the buzzword. That is the newest of new technologies that are exploding everywhere. You all have it on your phone, whether you want it or not. It's already on there, as I tell my daughters. So we'll talk about that, how these technologies are brought to bear on individuals with disabilities, but more importantly, how can we use them? Use them for good. Use them to progress, to assist people. Come with ideas or just come to learn because every year I learn about something I never heard of before, which is always fun. So. Anything comes up, let me know. Shoot me an email. If you want to keep the conversation going with Jan, you have her information as well. So